My guest today is Doug Stevenson, and you will know him from Storytelling in Business, and that's storytelling-in-business.com. If you just put in Doug Stevenson, you'll also find him because he's everywhere, YouTube, and he's got a blog, and he's got his websites because he's the master of storytelling in business. Now, what does that mean, you ask? I hear you asking. We're about to find out. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Glad to be here.
So storytelling sounds very creative, esoteric, fun. Of course, business on the other side seems heavy, dodgy, not so fun. How did the two meld?
Well, storytelling has become quite the fad lately. Everybody's on the roll talking about storytelling and how storytelling is a strategic communication tool and how you've got to tell a better story because it engages at a higher level. And I've been teaching storytelling in business since 1996. So I was teaching storytelling before storytelling was cool. And now the marketplace has caught up with me. We all know that data dumps don't work. We all know that people get fried, they check out, they start texting on their phone. If we're not engaging, if we're not holding their attention with something that's visual and emotional and compelling. And so storytelling, if it's done correctly, if it's a strategically chosen story crafted with the right elements and the right sequence, in other ways, it's a really strategic communication tool that speaks to the left logical linear brain if it's done well. And at the same time, it's got imagery, it's got emotion, it's got human drama, it's got conflict, it's got all the things that we like to see when we go to a movie. So if we can use this technology, what I call storytelling technology, in a business context, we can engage, we can influence, we can persuade, we can sell, we can help people to buy into change. So there's all kinds of uses for story, but it all gets back to, do you have the right story at the right time for the right event?
Now, for the interest of disclosure, I've known you even way back as far as 1996 when you were doing this. Started this, and I would like to say that the marketplace has caught up with you, that you're the leader in this, and they finally caught up with you. But you teach this specifically as a way to present speeches, or if you have to get up and introduce yourself or introduce somebody else. And so you offer workshops, one of which I've been to, and it was so helpful. But really you focus around speeches, right? Mostly. And how to tell a story when you're delivering a speech.
Well, it started out being for professional speakers and trainers who need to be able to use stories to make a living as a speaker or a trainer. And now it has morphed quite a bit more strategically into corporate America, where people, perhaps a leader, needs to communicate a new strategy for their team. A CEO needs to speak to their entire organization, 1,000 people at the all hands on deck annual meeting about a new change in direction or a new software, a new leadership team that's coming into place. Why are we merging? Why are we being acquired? And so the strategic communication is drilled all the way down to one-on-one conversations, sales conversations, marketing communication conversations, internal conversations. For instance, you're going up to your marketing team internally and saying, we need $25,000 for a specific research study that we'd like to do that would give us the results we would need to be able to launch this new product. Well, that's an internal conversation, and you can either just say, we need $25,000. You can say, let me tell you a story that illustrates a future scenario of what it would be like if we were able to do this research and utilize this money in the correct way to do this launch and the benefit to our organization to do that. So it's internal communications, it's external communications, it's for motivational keynote speaking, it's for trainers who need to be more engaging. It's now at many, many, many different levels, and it's become just fascinating to me to see how people are calling on me to help them find their stories, tell their stories, and influence and persuade their audiences.
You said something interesting that you can use it for marketing, and of course this is a marketing summit that I'm promoting here with all these interviews. And for sales, would you suggest that we bring stories into like our one-to-one sales conversations?
Well, when somebody says, what do you do? And you answer with the facts of what you do, that doesn't paint a picture. That doesn't create a movie. That doesn't take them into what the experience would be like to work with you. For instance, you, Michelle, you have a varied career. You do all kinds of different things, and you do individual coaching. Well, there are different stories that you would tell based on what is that person asking you about. Are they asking you about individual coaching and consulting? Or are they asking you to come out and do a workshop for their organization or association? Well, the story is different. So when I am asked a question by someone on the phone or in person, I'm tailoring that story to that person and that need, knowing I've got lots of stories, but I don't want to just tell them what I do. I want them to take them into the experience by telling them a story. For instance, if it was an all-day corporate training, I want to tell them a story about one of the exercises that I'm going to do and what it's going to look like. And I'm painting a picture for them, even if it's on the phone, of I'm standing at the front of the room and I'm asking your audience to do this, and people are doing this, and I'm literally giving them a visualization, telling them a story of what's going to take place in the room so that they can feel like, oh, that's what it'll be like in the room. That's what we want. We want that experience. So I can tell them what I do, or I can tell them a story about what I do that puts them in the room with me, and then they feel like, wow, I just got to take a test drive of Doug being at the front of the room with my people, and this sounds like it's going to be fun, and it'll be a lot of good content.
Yeah, and it's because when you first said that, I was thinking, oh, testimonials. You know, I can give a testimonial, but you're even taking it a step further, not what someone else got from me or from you, but what they're going to get. So they get excited about what they're going to get rather than what somebody else already got.
Well, it can be both. I mean, there's a credibility story. I teach a type of story called a credibility story, where if you ask me a question of, well, Doug, have you ever done this before? Have you ever done something like this? And let's say you're a healthcare organization. Well, I'm going to say, as a matter of fact, 6 months ago, I was doing a one-day workshop for a healthcare organization similar to yours. Let me tell you a little bit about what they were looking for and how I helped them. So I'm going to go into this story about this other healthcare organization because they're basically saying, can you tell me that you've done this before, that you understand our industry? So I'm not going to be talking to them about a manufacturing organization. It will be a story about another organization and what I did. That's another way to do a test drive.
Got it. And so
this is what I'll do for you, or this is what I did for them. It depends on the question.
Yeah, love that. And so people, because I'm thinking about how this is really going to pertain to our audience listening to this, who I think for the most part are going to be smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, people marketing, but I have a lot of people that will be following this and watching who do conduct workshops, who do go out there and do public speaking, who are out there in the public eye. And so you're giving tips about how they can also sell their own workshops.
Well, when I started out in the speaking business, I did what many people listening to this are probably doing, which is speaking in their community to Rotary clubs and Sertoma clubs and Optimist clubs and business luncheons and, you know, women's business luncheons, small business luncheons. We used to have this thing called SWAP, Salesman with a Purpose, and I used to speak at those. I mean, I was in every Denny's and every Chipotle and every, you know, IHOP in Colorado Springs for the first couple of years in those little rooms in the back, speaking at breakfast or at lunch, talking about what it was that I did, giving presentations, but also promoting workshops. Mm-hmm. And I learned over a period of time that I could just promote a workshop, or I could tell stories that got people more engaged in seeing themselves having taken the workshop and applying what I learned. And so I learned that there's a way to do the Rotary Club speech that gets you nowhere, making you think, well, what the hell did I just do? I just drove across town and I stood in front of these people and I had another chicken lunch and I stood there and talked to all of these people and I walked out the door and it's like, I just wasted a bunch of time. I didn't get a result. So there is a strategic way to design that 20 to 30 minute presentation with a certain number of stories that speaks to what you want to get. And it gets it.
Yeah, okay, got it. So that's how you marketed when you first started out. I know that you use stories and that you've got a pretty full YouTube channel and you do videos yourself and record a lot of your stories. What else do you do to market yourself now?
Well, my YouTube channel has got me a lot of interest because people, when they call me on the phone, I will ask them, Where did you hear about me? Oh, well, I did a Google search, and when I did a Google search, I saw that you had a video on YouTube, so I watched that, and then I went to your website, and there was a video on your website, and so, you know, there's a lot of interest because I put articles in my blog, I put articles on other article websites, but I also now have learned to go and speak, even though I'm not being paid, at the associations where the room is filled with people who would hire me. In other words, they're like showcase presentations. Now I'm going out and I'm doing an hour and a half presentation. It's called a breakout session. One of them is the American Society of Training and Development, and it's a room full of trainers from all over the world. Trainers, training directors, curriculum development people, and they're looking for vendors. They're looking for people to be content experts that they can bring into their organization. This is an organization of this conference. It have 9,000 to 10,000 people, sometimes 12,000 people from all over the world. That has built my business. That one, I speak at that business at that conference every year. I'm one of those speakers that they say back by popular demand, Doug Stevenson, because my room always fills up, you know, standing room only, and you know I've got a reputation there. I'm a big star in a little pond. But I get business from that because I'm able to get up and do what I do. And a small percentage of the people in that room, let's say I have 200 people in a room, 5 or 6 people are going to come up to me and give me business. They're going to hire me to come into their organization. Maybe that year, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years later.
Wow.
I just did a whole bunch of work for Coca-Cola in Latin America, and they saw me 4 years ago.
Wow, interesting. So
remember,
part of what I love about this is you've done your due diligence to build your business, and now that you're an international trainer, consultant, you put up a video on YouTube, and that leads to the next thing that leads to the next thing. So you are doing your own craft of storytelling, doing what you do best, and that's your marketing. I love that.
Well, I mean, when they call it the World Wide Web, it's not just the World Wide Web. I mean, your blog, your articles, your website, the videos on your website, the podcasts, the articles that you put on other websites and other people, interviews like this that you're doing with me, spread the word, the videos on YouTube and Vimeo. There's just, you know, there's 100 places. Now, you can't do them all.
You can't.
But you need to be strategic about how you use your time. You need to create webinars. You need to do teleseminars. You need to do what you're doing because you're a very, very good marketer. And you just need to know. But before you do all this stuff, Michelle, you need to know what are the stories that I tell that are strategically designed to get me the results that I want that make the phone ring.
Right. So let's go there because you talked about you've got all these different kinds of stories and how do you craft your story. So first, how do you choose what story to tell? Do you make it up out of the air? Do you use personal experience?
Well, I believe that our credibility comes from our personal experience. So I'm always on the lookout for what is an experience that I've had that teaches a lesson or where I learned the lesson that I want to teach. And so I'm always looking for what is it that my clients are struggling with? What is it that's their challenge or their pain? Where are they hurting? What story do I have that addresses that pain in a way that when I tell that story, they sit back and go, this guy gets us. This guy gets us. This guy understands who we are and what we're all about. He understands why we're having a challenge. And then the rest of my program shows that I have solutions. I have methodology, I have systems, I have processes. So the way that you find your stories is, I believe you start with the point in mind. Mm-hmm. What do I need a story to do? I believe story is a very strategic tool. And for instance, I use the analogy of drill bits. A story isn't just a drill bit. There is one kind of a story that's a 1-inch drill bit, and it makes a really nice big 1-inch hole. It's called a spade bit. And there's another drill that's a 1/16 inch drill that makes a very, very small and precise little hole. Those are two different kind of drill bits that do two different kinds of jobs. There isn't one kind of story that does everything. There's a story that does sales, and there's a story that does marketing. There's another story that is emotional and inspires people to change their lives and correct their aberrant behavior. So there are different stories that do different things. You need to understand, first of all, what do I want a story to do? Do I want it to get people to come up to me and ask for my business card? Well, then I need to understand what are their issues and needs, what is the pain that they're experiencing, and do I have stories that address that, and is that my area of expertise or not?
Right, right. So if you're going to talk to Coca-Cola, you might craft a totally different story for one Coca-Cola office as a different Coca-Cola office, depending upon why they hired you, what their pain is, what their needs are.
Well,
so you don't just go ahead.
Well, a lot of that has to do with see, at the level that I'm at with my speaking career, having been in it for almost 20 years, the phone rings, somebody has heard about me, seen me, gone to my website, whatever, and now I go into an interviewing process to determine if there's a fit and what are your issues and what are your needs, and is that the kind of thing that I speak about and address with my storytelling and metaphor workshops and seminars or keynotes. And so some of the people listening to your audience are probably saying, well, I need to get the phone to ring in the first place. Right. So here's what you guys need to do. First, you have to say, who do I want to attract? What is my niche? What is my topic area of expertise, and what is my niche? And get this, folks, you're not everything to everybody. You don't speak about anything to anybody. You have an area of expertise. You have a brilliance. You have a wisdom. Stick to that. Get brilliant at that. And tell stories about that illustrate your experience and your success working with clients and helping clients and customers and individuals to have a positive result, a positive outcome, to make more money, to be happier, to be healthier, whatever that is, to be a better leader. So you start out knowing, what do I want to attract? What kind of client? Do I want an individual? If it's an individual, do I want a male or a female? Do I want middle-aged women or middle-aged men? Do I want upper-level leadership or mid-level leadership? Do I want people who have health issues, or do I want people who want to be better salespeople? Who am I trying to attract? Now you go out and you look for, what are the stories that illustrate where I've worked with somebody in the past and I had those successes, so that if I'm listening to you and I happen to be a person who needs somebody to help me get where I want to go, and I hear your story, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Because in that story is contained all the elements and all of my pain, so that I go, oh my gosh, this guy gets it. This lady gets it. She can help me. She's helped this other person. She can help me as well.
You said something, all of this is so rich and so important, but you said something specifically that I think beginning entrepreneurs and even mid-size entrepreneurs, people who have been doing this for a while, get scared about, and that's turning down business. Mm-hmm. You've got to know where you fit, who your audience is, and so what I hear you say is you interview potential clients and sometimes you turn them down.
I'm getting better at that after 20 years of interviewing a client and getting a sense of this is not a good fit, or what you're asking me to do is not what I do. I literally had a conversation with somebody about 10 days ago, and we started talking about a customized conference, a customized program for Las Vegas coming up in February, and what I could do to help them tell their story and everything. And we were having this great conversation. I hung up the phone, and about 2 days later I had to say, what am I doing? I can't do what we were talking about. I'm getting off track here. Yeah. And I had to sit down and craft an email to say, I think I might have led you to believe that I could do what you want me to do, which is not what I do, and could I clarify what I really do well, and let's see if we can reconfigure this. And that went away for February, and it might come back in the proper format for a different kind of a conference later on, a sales conference where I'd be a better fit. But the challenge is, at the beginning, you just want to make some money. Right. You want to get paid, and you want to grab onto anything. But the challenge is, if you're ethical, you're doing a disservice to people by taking their money and getting them involved in their hopes and dreams and aspirations with you, when there's probably somebody better. You need to be focusing on what is your level of expertise and what is your brilliance, and increase your laws of attraction around that. Ah, great. Amazing with that.
Now let's talk about the crafting of the story for a minute, and I want to let everybody know exactly what they can get from you for free here too, because you're giving away this fabulous ebook that's going to go through some of these tips about how specifically do you craft your story. So I know that and I'll tell people in a minute how they can get that, because I want to go through some of the tips first. I know one of the things that you talk about is you've got to have a phrase that pays. I've been through your program. It's one of the best things I took away, as well as a couple other tips. But tell our audience what that is.
Well, a phrase that pays is a short and pithy little phrase like make your move, invest with confidence, win from within. It's a short little phrase that is an advertising jingle, basically. I call it the chorus to the song of your story. And it summarizes the point of your story in a very, very short and concise way with a call to action statement like make your move, get back on the bike, pick up the phone.
Just do it.
Emails a day. In other words, you craft a story that contains within it an obstacle or a challenge. And I've got a 9 steps of story structure template that you use to craft the story and build a story. So you craft the story, it's got an obstacle, it's got a challenge, you overcome the challenge, but in the way that you teach the lesson of the story, you use a phrase such as make your move or pick up the phone. And this phrase that pays not only tells the listener what you did to overcome your obstacle, your challenge, but it also is a call to action for them. So if I were to say to you, one of the things that I learned about growing my business is that when I go out to a conference and I come back with 40 different feedback forms that say, I'd like you to contact me about a seminar for my country, I pick up the phone and I call 5 people a day. So if I'm getting busy with all 27 things that I've got going on, I've got something else going on, and I want to take the dog for a walk, and I want to go to the gym, one of my principles is, well, you've got 40 sheets of paper there, pick up the phone and call 5 people today. So I would say, so what I learned from that experience is pick up the phone, call 5 people a day. That would be a phrase that pays. It's a call to action. It tells you what to do. People then go home knowing, okay, I got to pick up the phone and call 5 people a day. It's pretty darn basic and simple. It's not rocket science. It's not genius. It's not like, oh my gosh. It's a very simple action. You and I change our behavior based on to-do list items. We know that we need to do to change our behavior, to change our pattern, to get better at it. A phrase that pays, what I would use to people is like, give 1 presentation a month. Okay, you want to build your business, give 1 presentation a month.
Yeah, or pick up the phone.
Yeah, there's something. Pick up the phone, find somebody to go talk to. There's a million people looking for free speakers. It's easy. They have no criteria, no high bar at all. They just want a human being who can talk. Do you fit that criteria? Yes, you do. Now figure out what the heck you want to say and get out there and speak 12 times a year, 24 times a year, and you'll get better.
Right. And then so you include this phrase that pays in your own speech so that other people remember you by that phrase, and also hopefully they're taking action on what you told them to do. And so every time they take that action, they're remembering you, and it comes back around. It helps you market you. So that's a really cool tip, and it can also help pull the speech together, just because it's a thread that runs through it that helps pull it together. Now, when you're doing a speech, you're crafting your speech, and I've got one coming up. I'm speaking in LA in a couple of months, and it's 45 minutes. How many stories do I put in there?
Well, we start out with a modular formula of how long are your stories?
Oh, I don't know.
Long? Are they 5 minutes long? Are they 6 minutes long?
Yeah, they're probably 5 minutes long.
Well, then you need to understand 5 or 6 stories teach 5 or 6 principles. For instance, if you're going out there and you say you're going to teach the 6 principles of media marketing. Okay, well, 6 principles, that means there's going to be 6 stories. Well, if they're all 10 minutes long, that's 60 minutes.
Too much.
I'm just saying, modular approach. It's like what you do to create a speech is you break it down by increments of time, modules of time. Okay, my opening statement and quote is going to take 3 minutes. Then I'm going to segue into a story that's going to take 6 minutes and make my first point. And then I'm going to read a little, article from the Wall Street Journal that amplifies what I just said about my first point. And then I'm going to segue into another story, and it's going to take 5 minutes. Start doing the math. Add it up. What you want to do if you're going to build a 60-minute keynote presentation is you're probably going to want about 55 minutes of content, maybe even 53 minutes of content, because you're probably going to ad lib once you get up there. And if you build 60 minutes in, you're going to go over.
Ah, got it. Do you recommend that people memorize their speeches?
No, I recommend that you memorize your best stories. You craft your best stories because they're the things that people are going to remember. And if they're strategically designed and they have the right element in the right sequence, the right drama, the right conflict, the right lesson, that's what people remember forever. And so the stories that I teach with my story theater method for storytelling in business are very, very strategically designed and crafted and memorized quite often. So I teach a whole scripting process to write a conversational script and how do you memorize. But each and every one of the people listening to this has probably told a story once and it just came out great. It just, I mean, they just happened to be on and they just told it and it had the right sequence and the right elements and they remembered the point and it's like, wow, that was so cool. And it worked really well. But they don't know what they did. It's unconscious incompetence. In other words, they just don't know what they did. Now they're at another conference a week later, another meeting a week later, another Rotary Club, whatever. They tell the story and it just falls to pieces. It's terrible. They get lost. They drop out pieces. They forget their point. Well, that means you don't have a structure. That means you don't have a craft. And if you want to have success in business and get predictable results, you have to have craft. Having said that, I'm not saying you memorize every word of your speech. But I memorize my stories. I memorize my opening. I memorize my closing. I come from a theater background, Michelle. I know how to memorize.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm not spontaneous and in the moment with my audience. I am.
So can we, for those people who are listening that may be new to speaking, can you take notes, or is that up on the stage with you, or is that a big no-no?
You can take notes up on the stage. Here's what I'm going to suggest, though. You do not take 3x5 cards with little chicken scratch on all of these cards. You're standing there with all these notes in your hand looking like an amateur because you can't remember what the hell you're doing. What you do is you take a piece of cardstock and you create a bulleted list of the different elements in sequence, like your George story, your Hawaii story, your Harvard Business Review article, and you just create a bulleted list in sequence of what the elements of your keynote are, so that you can just look at the list and go, what's next? What's next? Hopefully the bullet cues you into that story or that article, and you pick up the article and you read it or whatever. So it's very simple. Now, why cardstock? If you put your bulleted list on a piece of paper and run it through a printer, it comes out with a curve. It slides right off of the lectern. It slides right off of anything because it's curved. Now, if it's a piece of paper, here's what I'm going to suggest. You take your white piece of paper, if it happens to be your notes are on a white piece of paper, and you fold it in half. Now, because of that fold, it will sit on a lectern. It will sit on a music stand, and it won't slide off. Otherwise, it looks like this. You see that little curve? Put your bulleted list on that, whoop, right off onto the floor. Now you're in trouble.
These are tips you won't get anywhere else. I love that. That tip alone is, I mean, only an experienced person who's been up on stage is going to give you that tip. I love that.
I'm going to suggest you don't stand behind a lectern ever, anywhere, ever.
Yeah.
I spoke at Rotary clubs when I did all that kind of stuff. I basically said, okay, everybody turn your chairs. I'm going to go over to the open end of the room. And I always was the guy who just broke all the rules and did whatever I wanted. Here's what you need to understand about presentation. All they remember is how they feel and what they remember in their head after the speech is over. They don't remember that you had notes. They just remember, oh, wow, she was great. I remember that story and that phrase. That was so cool. Get back on the bike. Yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to get back on the bike. I fell off the bike and I've been off the bike for years. I need to get back on the bike. And it's a metaphor. But they remember how they felt and they remember your stories. They don't remember that you had a piece of paper that had a fold down the middle. They don't remember that you looked at notes. And they don't quite honestly care.
Now, I've been to one of your workshops a number of years ago, but I still use, so much of what we went through on that weekend. And what's
That's
interesting is that all these things that you talk about and that is in your books that people can get at your site and also in the free workbook we'll be giving away in a minute. When you come to a workshop, you go through some of the physicality about being in your body, putting your arms out, laughing, having expression. That is difficult for some people. We get up on the stage and we kind of shrink. It's a very inner work that we have to do to get up on stage, Doug. So you're as much of a personal development coach, I think, as you are a speaking coach.
Well, everything that goes wrong at the front of the room as a speaker is all tied to self-esteem. We get scared and we get nervous and our heart starts pumping and our hands start sprinkling water like crazy. I mean, you might as well put your hands out and water the lawn. They're like sprinkling water. It's ridiculous. It's like, why is all the saliva in my mouth in the palm of my hand? I don't have cotton mouth, but my hands are sweaty. What is going on? This is weird. It's all tied to fear and self-esteem. And the more that you speak and the more that you get comfortable up there and the more that you get positive feedback from people, you stop trying to be somebody else and trying to be cool and trying to be articulate and intelligent. And you start to realize, I am articulate, I am intelligent, I'm just fine. What am I trying to be somebody else for? But it takes a while. It took me a while and it takes most of us a while. But what I've realized, it's not about content. We develop too much content out of a lack of self-esteem. We think we need to read 27 quotes from 27 books in order to be intelligent, as if we're not intelligent. And so a lot of what you're talking about with expression and freedom and emotion and being able to use your body, all I'm asking people to do is do the same thing in front of an audience, only bigger, that you do all day long. Well, the next time you're in a restaurant having lunch with somebody, watch how you tell stories and hang out with your friends and when nobody's watching you, and see how you talk with your hands and see how you use voices and you move back and forth and you use your shoulders. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you do that when you get in front of an audience? Oh, I think I'm supposed to be cool. I think I'm supposed to be corporate. Or it's like, I don't know what that is, but it took me a while to get over it. Now I am actually helping people fast forward through the first 50 fear-induced speeches to get to that 51st speech where you're like, all right, here I am, this is what I know, let's go. And you've got confidence and you're talking with power and presence and emotion and you're speaking your truth and you're like deep and powerful and you got good craft. And basically people say to me, you give me back me.
You have a phrase or a sentence that you say that just makes me cry. Love yourself and let them watch. Did I quote you correctly?
That's perfect. I just thought I'd let it just sit there for a second. Love yourself and let them watch. So much focus has been given to beginning speakers about connecting with your audience that very little has been given to connecting with yourself, being who you are, authentic, congruent, powerful, emotional, amazing, intelligent, articulate, poised. And so what I've learned over the years is, and this is that confronting my codependent speaker mode of I want everybody to like me, and I want everybody to think I'm intelligent and articulate. And finally, at a certain point, I realized, you know what? I need to think I'm intelligent. I need to think I'm articulate. I need to get that I'm okay. And they'll come along for the ride. Because when I was in theater, I never was concerned about the audience, and yet they were right there. But I was working really hard when I was in theater, and I was up on the stage doing my role, concentrating on my job as an actor in a scene in a play or in a scene in a movie. That I couldn't be concerned with what was going on 10 feet away from me because I was really connected in to what I was doing. Well, I realized, what if I brought that into speaking? What if I was less concerned with whether they're thinking I'm okay and more concerned with speaking my truth, more concerned with doing what I know I need to do? I've got a story, I want to tell it well. So it's more about learning to love yourself and accept yourself and be whole within yourself and letting that room full of people watch. watch you being wonderful, watch you being magnificent, watch you having stories to tell. They just happen to be witnessing your brilliance.
Love that. So you got this workbook. It's like 30 pages almost, right? I think 29 pages.
Yeah, the Story Crafting e-workbook. And basically this is a little home study course for how do you choose stories, how do you craft them using my 9 steps, how do you add a phrase that pays to them, how do you find a phrase that pays. So it's something that we generally sell here on my website, but I'm going to offer it to free for everybody if they send an email to Deborah, Deborah, at DougStevenson.com. And Stevenson is Stevenson. So I'm sure you'll send that link out.
I will.
Once again with this video, but it's the Story Crafting e-workbook, and all you've got to do is send an email to Deborah and say, send me the Story Crafting e-workbook.
That's so generous. Thank you. So I want to just...
Give, you get, Michelle. When you give, you get.
Oh, I love that. So you are talking about putting stories in, being authentic, be yourself, relax, all these things that seem like they should be easy, but they're not. But then you give us some real specific things we can hang on to, too, like get a phrase that pays. If you need notes, fold your paper, put it up behind a lectern. So you really got a match, a mix and match of concrete steps about how to craft a speech in this workbook. But you also bring this personal development to it, to where we really can be our best up on stage. So this is a Marketing Overwhelm Summit, how we can market ourselves. Obviously, speaking is one way that a lot of people want to use to market themselves. Are there anything, is there anything that you don't do that you would like to do to market yourself, to market your speaking career? Like, are you on like Twitter? Do you get out there and network at events still? What are some things that you do and don't do to market?
Well, I think it's essential to hang out with people who are further along than you are. And so you go to those conferences. I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. I've been a member since 1994, so that's, you know, 9 years now. That has been absolutely invaluable, because if you want to be a professional speaker, you need to hang around professional speakers who are making a living doing it, so that you can see how they handle themselves, how they dress, what do they do, how do they craft a speech, and you can learn from them. So there might be an association of coaches or entrepreneurs or whatever it is that you can hang out with and listen and learn from the people who are doing better than you are, and spend money, invest in personal development with those people. If you want to be a better speaker, invest in taking the classes and the courses, and like my story theater retreat, from people who are teaching you things that will accelerate your growth in the business. You don't have to fuddle around and find it all yourself.
Yeah, great advice.
When it comes to internet marketing, I've spent an inordinate amount of time and energy on my website, making sure that it is attractive, visually attractive, it's got the right ingredients, it is branded correctly, that the keywords are right, all of that kind of stuff. I also have a storytelling in business discussion group on LinkedIn. If anybody would like to join that, it's just go to LinkedIn and search Storytelling in Business, and you'll see Doug Stevenson is hosting Storytelling in Business, and you can join that discussion. But what I have to be very, very careful with is my time. Twitter drives me nuts. I just don't bother with it. I've got a Twitter account and I've got Twitter followers, and it's like I could care less. Facebook, I don't spend a whole lot of time on, even though I got thousands of followers. Google Plus, however, is very, very powerful. I just put up an article on Google Plus with a picture the other day. Within 20 minutes, I was on the first page of Google for the search terms that I wanted to be on there, because it's Google Plus rather than in Facebook. And you know, Google Plus is Google,
right?
And they like to promote themselves, so Google Plus is great. I have to be very careful about all that, though. Where do I put my articles? How much time do I spend? I try and do an article a month. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for my story theater newsletter, my Storytelling and Business newsletter that is once a month with an article, a free article. I have written over 90 articles over the years on storytelling and presentation skills. So I continue to churn out new intellectual capital. I'm building video learning e-systems, e-webinar systems that I can sell so that I don't have to get on a plane and be in a room somewhere. I network at the right conferences. As I say, I go in a day early, I stay a day late, I walk around the halls, and I just basically, if I'm known at ASTD, I hang out in the halls.
Yeah.
I just stand in the hall and I let the traffic pass me by, and somebody will come by and go, I was just in your session. Oh, that session was so great. We have a conversation. That's how I got to Singapore.
Oh, great. So networking, Google Plus, writing, YouTube, speaking at key events, those are all things that work for you. And I love that you are conscious of your time. Don't allow yourself to go into overwhelm, and you don't use the things that aren't working for you, probably not where your audience really hangs out so much.
It depends on what you want. I mean, in NSA, there are people who have, 1 million followers on Twitter, and they put out 2 or 3 tweets a day. Well, have a nice day.
Well, and it may work for them. Yeah.
It works for them, and they want to be mega superstars. I'm not interested in being a mega superstar. I serve a very, very niche clientele. I'm kind of like a boutique shop. I'm not Walmart. I'm more like Neiman Marcus, and so I'm a little bit more high price, a little specialized, give great value and do great work. But I have no desire to be one of these gigantic guys who's out on the road 100 times a year. I kind of like being home.
Yeah.
I love doing what we're doing right now.
It's fun, isn't it? It's fun.
At my desk in my office. This is great. Colorado Springs is a good place to be.
It's a good place to be. So people can get the workbook by emailing Deborah at dougstevenson.com. I'll put the link out. It is free, and normally you sell it, so thank you. I really appreciate that.
Welcome.
Now, one thing I'm curious about is what you do besides all this work and besides speaking. And you and I have talked a little bit in the past about how we give back in the community. So if you had an extra $1 million laying around, who or what would you give that to? What cause would you support?
I feel a need to, just an energetic need to help homeless youth and battered women. And so the people who are kind of on the margins, who are getting, clobbered by life, who are getting abandoned by life, who are not getting the support and help that they need places to go. So here in Colorado Springs, I support Urban Peak. I go down and I speak to the youth down there, and I give them some tips and some skills on presenting themselves, on telling stories about job interviews. How does life work out there? I mean, they're like homeless 16-year-olds, and they don't have parental guidance, and so I like to give of my time and energy to things like that. And of course, we donate to lots of different things, Sierra Club and homeless shelters and Red Cross, and just all kinds of things. And we're involved in supporting our local theater community. I'm still into theater quite a bit, so I've got a lot of varied interest, and luckily we're prosperous enough to be able to give back a little bit. So that feels really good.
Thank you, Doug. So exciting to have you here. Lots of great tips. The website is storytelling-in-business.com. But like I said, if you just Google Doug Stevenson, he'll come right up, or Storytelling in Business, he'll come right up. It's been a pleasure to have you here, Doug.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's always a pleasure to speak to you.